Okay, folks, everything new under the sun. We're going to take a look at part, whatever this is, 4 or 5, of the Ancient Apocalypse of Ezra, the apocryphal book, one of the Apocrypha, not part of the canon, but certainly an interesting book and a lot of insights prophetically and otherwise in it. And so we're on to chapter 10 here. Now, we're not going to really cover much of chapter 10 here, but suffice it to say, it speaks of Zion being Jerusalem, Israel, and the sacrifices that came back with the third temple, etc. And I didn't do my intro video, so let's start that now. All right. So, like I said, we're not going to cover this, but we're going to skip through. And like I said, you can get this book for $10 off Amazon. It's an interesting read. Definitely check it out. So we're going to go ahead and go to chapter 11 here, where we get into the three-headed eagle vision. And chapter 11 and 12, basically the prophecy is in those two chapters, this particular vision, and then Ken Johnson's commentary after it. So let's read through it here. I dreamed an eagle came up from the sea, which had 12 feathers sticking up on one wing and 3 heads. I saw she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the wings of the air blew on her, and clouds were gathered around her. Out of her feathers there grew opposing feathers, and they became little, puny feathers. But her heads were asleep. The middle head was greater than the other heads, but it was asleep also. Then the eagle flew with her wings and reigned over the earth and over all those who dwell therein. All things under heaven were subject unto her, and no one spoke against her, not a single creature upon the earth. Then the eagle rose up upon her talons and spoke to her feathers, saying, Do not watch all at once. Let each sleep in his own place and watch by course. But let the heads be preserved for the last. I beheld the voice did not come out of her heads, but from the middle of her body. I counted her opposing feathers, and there were 8 of them. On the right side there arose 1 feather and reigned over all the earth. After a time his reign ended, and he disappeared, so that even his place was no longer seen. The next feather stood up and reigned a long time. While he was reigning, his end came also, and he disappeared like the first. Now I can't wait for the interpretation of this. This is going to be very interesting. The U.S. generally being understood to be the eagle, basically, in Bible prophecy. Then a voice said to it, Listen, you have ruled over the earth so long that I say to you, before you disappear, after you no feather will rule as long as you have ruled, not even half as long. Then arose the 3rd feather and reigned as the others before, and disappeared also. So it went with the rest of the feathers, reigning one after the other, and never seen again. I beheld in process of time the feathers that followed stood up on the right side, that they might rule also. Some of them ruled, but within a while they also disappeared. For some of them started to reign, but could not hold on to the rule. After this I looked, and 12 feathers and the 2 little feathers disappeared. Nothing remained on the eagle's body except 3 heads and 6 opposing feathers. And 6 is the number of man, of course. Then I saw the 2 little feathers also separated themselves from the 6, but remained under the head that was upon the right side, and the 4 continued in their place. I beheld 4 feathers that were under the wing, thought to set themselves up and to have rule. I beheld there was one set up, but it suddenly disappeared. The second disappeared more quickly than the first. I beheld the 2 feathers that remained planned to reign together. While they were making plans, one of the sleeping heads, the middle one, suddenly awoke. It was greater than the other two heads. Then I saw the other 2 heads joined with the middle one. All 3 heads turned and ate up the 2 puny feathers under the wing that were planning to reign. Let's skip this one here. Or the 2 that were with it turned and ate it up. The middle had frightened the entire earth. It ruled over and greatly oppressed all those who dwelt in the earth. The kingdom was greater than the kingdom of all the wings that were before it. After this I beheld the middle head suddenly disappeared, just like the wings had done before it. The two heads still remained, which in the same manner ruled over the earth, and over all those who dwelt in the earth. Then I beheld the head on the right side devour the head that was on the left side. I heard a voice saying, "Look before you and consider what you see." I beheld what appeared to be a roaring lion roused from the forest. And the lion is often Britain, basically. It spoke in a man's voice to the eagle, saying, "Listen now, and I will speak with you." The Most High says to you, "Aren't you what is left of the four beasts I made to reign in my world, that the end times might come through them? You, the fourth beast, overcame all the beasts that came before you. And you have ruled the world with terror and oppression. For so long you have lived on the earth with deceit. You have not judged the earth with truth. You have afflicted the meek and hurt the peaceable. You have loved liars and destroyed the homes of those who brought forth fruit, and broke down the walls of those who never harmed you. Therefore your insolence has been judged by the Most High, and your pride judged by the Mighty One. The Most High has also seen your proud times and ended them, and the eagle's abominations are complete. Therefore, eagle, disappear, you and your horrible wings, wicked feathers, malicious heads, hurtful claws, and your entire vain body, so that all the earth may be refreshed, and return, being delivered from your violence, and that she may hope for judgment and mercy of him that made her." So then Ken mentions here, the vision continues in the next chapter. Therefore, we will continue the commentary in chapters 11 and 12 at the end of the next chapter. So let's continue on here, chapter 12. So the end of the dream here. While the lion spoke these words unto the eagle, I saw a remaining head, and the four feathers disappeared, and the two that went under it, and set themselves up to reign, whose kingdom was small and full of uproar, and also disappeared. The whole body of the eagle was burnt, and the earth was in great fear. Then I woke from the dream, but my mind was troubled. You have wrought all these things unto me, because you search out the ways of the Most High. Oh, I am astonished and shocked and greatly afraid, because of what I have seen tonight. Then I petitioned the Most High to strengthen me, saying, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, and you have truly blessed me above others, if you hear all my prayers, please strengthen me, and reveal to your servant the interpretation of this vision which I have seen, so that my soul will be comforted. For you have counted me worthy to see the end of the times and of the periods. He said unto me, This is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle that you saw come up from the sea is the fourth kingdom, which appeared in the vision to your brother Daniel. Then it was not explained to him, Therefore I will declare it to you. The days will come when a kingdom will arise on the earth, and it will be more terrifying than all the kingdoms that were before it. 12 kings reign in it, one after another. The second that begins will reign longer than any of the other 12. This is the interpretation of the 12 feathers that you saw in the vision. As for the voice which you heard speak, and that came not from the heads, but from the middle of the body, this is the interpretation. After the time of the kingdom, let's see what this one here says, or in the midst of the time of that kingdom, so in the middle of the time of the kingdom there. After the time of the kingdom, there will arise great struggles. It will be in danger of failing. Nevertheless, it will not fall then, but it will begin again. As for you, you're seeing the 8 opposing feathers sticking to her wings. This is the interpretation. 8 kings will rise in her. Their reigns will be short and swift. The first 2 will perish in the middle of her time. The middle 4 will be kept until the time of her end. So the time of the eagle's end, I guess. But the 2 will be kept unto the end. As for your seeing the 3 sleeping heads resting, this is the interpretation. In her last days, the Most High will raise up 3 kingdoms. Last days, or the end times it speaks of. And then raise up 3 kingdoms, and the hyperlink said kings there. So potentially 3 kings. And renew many things with her, and they will have a dominion over the earth, and greatly oppress all those in the earth, much more than all who were before them. This is why they are called the heads of the eagle. These 3 will finish all the wickedness and perform the eagle's last actions. So this eagle here is performing lots of persecution and evil in the world. And this kingdom king or group of kings is going to come to an end, and but I think God uses this, whatever this is in the end times, to ultimately to bring people to God. As for you're seeing the large middle head disappear, this means one of them will die in bed, but in pain. The two that remain will be slain by the sword. The sword of the one will devour the other, but in the last days will he fall by the sword himself. As for your seeing the two puny feathers under the wings passing over the head that is on the right side, this is the interpretation. These are the ones who the Most High has kept for the eagle's end. This kingdom's reign will be brief and full of trouble, as you have seen. Now speaking of the lion, the Messiah here, the lion whom you saw coming up out of the forest, roaring and speaking to the eagle and rebuking her for her unrighteousness with all the words which you have heard. This is the Messiah whom the Most High has kept for them and for their wickedness in the end days. The Messiah will reprove them and will upbraid them for their cruelty. First they will be placed before his judgment seat. This is speaking of the Great Tribulation here. Then will be rebuked and then destroyed. Now the rapture here being mentioned, because of his mercy he will deliver the remnant of my people, those who have been saved throughout my borders, and he will make them joyful until the coming day of judgment, of which I have spoken unto you from the beginning. This is the dream that you saw, and these are the interpretations. You alone have been found worthy to have knowledge of mystery of the Most High. Write therefore in a book all these things that you have seen, and put them in a hidden place. Teach them to the wise of your people, whose hearts are able, comprehending and keep these mysteries. But you endure here 7 days more. There may be revealed to you what the Most High wills to reveal to you. I think the last statement is interesting. It's to be written down in a book and kept hidden almost, and only given to people who are going to be able to understand it. So I suggest I put it out to you that it's meant for the Christians who are actively seeking the prophetic word, the future events, the biblical end times, the things that are going to be occurring in the end times. And I think that's kind of what it's speaking to there. And people who basically have solid hearts, who are firm in their foundation, firm in their faith. You can't just give Bible prophecy to the young Christian. I mean, they're either going to go down all sorts of conspiratorial routes with it, trails, and get lost paths, and get off on weird tangents, or they're going to be scared, and that may scare them away from their faith and their walk with God. Because in the end times, hard times are going to come for the Christian. There's going to be persecution. It's very likely that many of us will have very hard times. And for new Christians, that may be overwhelming. So that's interesting there, because it does seem to add up, because there's not a lot of people, obviously, who know about the ancient apocalypse of Ezra, except me and you who are listening, and some of the other guys on YouTube who have the videos, Ken Johnson, obviously. But you and I are the people who are seeking it, who are looking to understand it, who are looking at it now in the last days. And in the last days, the Bible says knowledge will be increased. And I think this is one method through which the knowledge is increased. All right, commentary here. We can divide the prophecy of the three-headed eagle into 5 parts. Number 1 is the fall of Rome. The first part of the vision is 11:1-19. The most interesting part of this prophecy is the 12 feathers. The oldest manuscript of the Apocalypse of Ezra that still exists is dated about AD 200. Rome fell in AD 476. This accurate prophecy was written more than 200 years before the events took place. We are told by the angel that the three-headed eagle represents the Roman Empire, 12:11. 12 feathers, which is the very first part of the vision, pictures the division of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was in danger of collapsing, so the empire was split into 2, and the Caesars moved to the new capital of Constantinople in AD 395. From that point, there were 12 rulers on the western side until the fall of the Western Empire in 476. The first one ruled 25 years, the second, Valentian III, ruled 30 years. None of the rest ruled for even half that time, as the prophecy stated. And so you can go to the World Book of the Encyclopedia and confirm the list. And you see the list there on the screen there. From that explanation, notice that both the eastern and the western divisions of the old Roman Empire appeared on the right side of the eagle. Since the middle head symbolizes Rome itself, all these rulers would be on the eastern side. The western side will be the Holy Roman Empire later in that time. 4th century church Ephraim, the Syrian, wrote in chapter 1 of his book, The End Times, that the Roman Empire would be divided into 2 separate empires ruled by 2 brothers. So interesting that the eagle is representing the Roman Empire, which was the biggest empire in that time. And I think in the 21st century, the United States is the biggest empire of the time, and it has been for the last 200 years. So there could be interesting parallels there. I don't know if you can suggest that there's 12 kings, etc. This prophecy isn't apparently not directly about the U.S., but I think there would be some parallels there, and maybe that's why they have that's why they're depicted as the eagle there. I don't know. Some 50 years later, after he gave the interpretation of the three-headed eagle prophecy, he was proven correct. Emperor Theodosius' sons Arcadius and Honorius inherited the eastern and western halves of the empire, respectively. This schism occurred in AD 395. Ephraim also predicted the eastern division would war with Persia, which is modern-day Iran, of course. This occurred in AD 602 to 628. These famous battles are known in history as the Byzantine-Persian Wars, and then it has another timeline here. The second part consists only of the division in 1128-32. Some have taught that the 3 heads of the Roman, Western Roman, Eastern Roman, Byzantium, and the Holy Roman Empire, that sounds logical until you realize that the Western Rome died out in AD 476 with the passing of the 12 feathers. If the feathers are gone, so is the Western Roman Empire. In 1223, we are told that the time of the 3 heads will be either during the end of the Roman kingdom or the end times. And again, I wonder if there's a parallel where it shoots forward and says, well, who is the Roman Empire today in the end days? We are in the end days. Again, could there be a parallel, a connection to the U.S. in the end days and God using that? But the fact that the U.S. also spreads persecution and war, etc., through their need for dominion and wanting to be the world policeman. So I think you could argue there that there's similar evils being foisted upon the world now, and some parallels there. In 1223, we are told that the 3 heads will be either during the end of the Roman kingdom or the end times. Either way, Western Rome's dying out in AD 476 is neither the end times nor is it the end of the Roman Empire, since the Ottoman Empire destroyed Byzantium in AD 1453. And Napoleon destroyed the Holy Roman Empire in AD 1804. Therefore, the empire of the middle head must be what came out of the Western Roman Empire, the Papal Rome. When a vacuum of power began to form right before the fall of Rome, the popes moved in to take control of the nations. At the height of its power, Papal Rome controlled all of Europe, but its power was different. It did not reign with an army, but by religion. And there will be a religion that effectively reigns in the last days as well, a one-world religion that comes along with the one-world government and the one-world leader. And there's lots of people suggesting that the Holy Roman Empire, or the papacy, the Pope, the Catholic Church, will kind of lead an ecumenical religion that brings together all the monotheistic religions of the world, including Islam and Christianity, and make a religion out of that. Somehow put those together, basically. Germany. Third part of the vision is chapter 11, 33 to 34. And you can see the left head there, Holy Roman Empire, Kaiser Germany, and Nazi Germany. The left head started with the establishment of the Holy Roman Empire in approximately 8800 and lasted until AD 1806. It ruled Europe under the control of the Pope. The Holy Roman Empire moved from Spain to France, and toward its end to Germany. Rome's power waned, and Germany became Protestant under Martin Luther. Then from 1523 to 1917, the German Empire controlled most of Europe. The Holy Roman Empire was crushed by Napoleon in the 1800s, although the Kaisers continued to rule until 1917 and World War I. Kaiser is German for Caesar, so there you go. In the 1930s, Adolf Hitler tried to create a third Roman Empire, Reich, in which the final solution was to destroy the Jewish race completely. And there's people in every generation that want to destroy the Jewish race completely, wipe them off the map into the sea, because ultimately Satan is trying to kill the Jews, because if he can kill the Jews, then he beats God effectively, because he knows that God has a plan for them. So if he can finish them off, he can beat God, basically. After World War II, this led to the United Nations to recognize Israel's right to be a state in their ancient homeland. Part 4 here, Russia. The fourth part was in the vision in chapter 1135. The third head began with the establishment of the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, in 8395. The Byzantine Empire lasted for over 1,000 years. Ephraim the Syrian predicted in chapter 5 of his work, The End Times, that after a fall of Western Rome, there would be a second Christian empire which would last until the time of the apostasy. Sometime after its fall, the end times would begin. That's interesting. I'll have to check out the book Ephraim the Syrian. The Byzantine Empire fell to the Islamic Ottoman Empire in AD 1453. In chapter 4 of the same work, Ephraim says that the apostasy would begin with the senseless desert nations. This corresponds to the dragon nations of Arabia spoken of in chapters 11 and 12. Ephraim may have been quoting the EZRA apocalypse when he taught about the senseless desert nations. AD 1056, the Eastern Orthodox Church, including Russia, broke away from Rome, further weakening Rome's power. When Byzantium fell to the Ottoman Empire, Muslim Turks, in 1453, the last of the Caesars fled to Russia and intermarried with the Russian royal line of Nicholas I, creating the Tsars of Russia. Just going to say Caesars as well. Tsar is Russian for Caesar, so you can see interesting, connection all the way through history with all these Caesars who are ruling, just different names from different countries and languages. They survived until 1917 and World War I. Since the Byzantine Empire never ate up the Holy Roman Empire, the right head eating up the left head must mean Russia eating up Germany, which took place in 1945. 1945 to 1991, Cold War. Russia enslaved other countries and used their resources to become a superpower. The USSR collapsed in 91, freeing those states. Ezekiel 38, 7-8 refers to these events as the assembling and the guarding. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all the company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many peoples against the mountains of Israel. Ezekiel 38 speaks to that. So parallels again, parallels in the Bible, paralleling and connecting back to these extra biblical books. But Ezekiel states that Gomer, Germany, with all its bands, East and West Germany, along with Austria, will accompany Russia when they attack Israel. So Gog, Magog, we can see the extra countries there that are involved. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. This means that for the Gog-Magog war to occur, two things had to happen. East and West Germany had to reunite into one country. That, of course, happened. This happened with the fall of Berlin Wall in 1989. The second thing is that Austria must unite with Germany. That's interesting. This must be among the allies of Russia when they all attack Israel. So, are we going to see some Austrian-German unity there? 2011 to the 7-year tribulation. We will see in chapters 15, 16, Russia will enter the Dragon Nations war with Syria. This seems to be the current war. Ken Johnson is speculating here. Interesting. fought in Syria. See chapters 11 and 12 for details. This sets what I believe to be the first stage of Russia's involvement with Israeli politics. This will ultimately lead to Gog-Magog war of Ezekiel 38. So Ken Johnson is speculating here that the book of Ezra is speaking about Russia being in Syria, and this directly leading to the war of Gog-Magog in Ezekiel 38. So how close are we? I think we are literally. I think you can count by the months now. It still may be more than a year away, but I think we're counting down. Is it 24 months, 48 months? I think we're counting down now. Speaking of the rapture, tribulation, and the second coming, the fifth part of the vision is chapter 11:36 to chapter 12, verse 3. The last part of the vision has the line of the tribe of Judah judging the nation, so I think things wrap up very quickly after this. This is the great tribulation. Notice during the judgment, his people are joyful and protected until the day of judgment is over. Does that mean we are out of this world, raptured up to heaven with Jesus? In heaven, basically. This is the rapture of the church, followed by the second coming. The rapture is referred to as the day of deliverance, and so we are delivered when the Holy Spirit is removed. When the restrainer that restraineth is removed, we go with him because the Holy Spirit's in us. So God has to take the Christians, because we have the Holy Spirit in our hearts. He has to take the Christians out to remove the restrainer, basically. And that's when, in a more literal sense, all hell breaks loose on earth. And the persecution and then the judgment comes with the 7-year tribulation. At this point, all the heads are gone. God has destroyed Russia, as described in Ezekiel 38:39. The only thing left of the fourth beast is the body with its 10 claws. Notice the eagle has claws, not talons. The word is just like the claws of Daniel's fourth beast. So again, some direct comparisons, relations, connecting points to the biblical canonical book of Daniel, speaking of the end-time beasts. We can conclude that after Russia's destruction at the beginning of the 7-year tribulation period, that the nations arise from the vacuum of power left in Russia's, the 10 nations arise from the vacuum of power left in Russia's absence. So a new world order is set in place after Russia is taken down as a nation. And Ken Johnson, like I say, he's speculating that the Syrian war leads directly to Gog-Magog, and I can totally see that. Now that Russia has its forces, its missile defense, its armies, etc. in Syria, it doesn't have to go much farther to attack Israel, and easily to bring in Turkey, Iran from the sides. Turkey and Iran are in Syria now. The latest news is that Syria's Bashar Assad is telling Turkey to get out, basically. But all these nations are there, and they have foot soldiers on the ground. They have weapons of mass destruction on the ground, ready to go. They have the S-300 missile system in Syria, ready to go and active right now. So all these nations are very close. Ezekiel 38 is ready to be to go. It's ready to go. All the players are in place, and this leads. I believe what he says. I think it makes sense. There's no going back for Russia. There's no pullout of Syria. Countries don't do that, really. They don't really ultimately ever pull out of a region unless they're completely destroyed by the people of that nation or another country, and I don't think that's going to happen. So Russia marching on Israel and bringing Turkey and Iran, Persia with them, absolutely. And if they are in Syria now, how close are we to the tribulation period, to the incredible prophecies, the incredible specific prophecies? And we haven't even spoken of Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus. Is that a trigger point? Does that come after, before? So a lot of interesting things. All right, we're going to stop a bit there for tonight, and then we're going to get into chapter 13 and some other interesting visions. But I thought that was quite an interesting chapter. Apparently, speaking about today's news, where the countries are right now. So, I mean, if you're looking at this and you don't think that's amazing, I think that's pretty fascinating stuff. And don't believe me, don't believe Ken Johnson. Be a good Berean, as the Bible says, and go study it out for yourself. Is there any connection there. And, you just go read Ezekiel 38. Go read Isaiah 17. And you can see those things. I mean, they're ready to go. It doesn't make a lot of sense that Russia would pull out of Syria and then come back. I think they're there to stay. You've got all the nations coming together in Syria. Why would it all of a sudden cool off? Every nation goes back to where they came from, and then peace in Syria for another 100 years. You can't see that happening. I think stuff is wound up right now. It's ready to go. Bob prophecy is ready to occur. I think we're there near the 6,000 year timeline. We're getting low on time left. I think we're maximum 6 years out from the tribulation period, from the 7-year tribulation. Probably more like 4, 3, maybe even 2 or 1. This is the 70th anniversary for Israel in the land. In 48, they got their country. In 1967, they got Jerusalem. I think in 2017, 2018, they're going to get their Temple Mount back, or the ability to have the temple. And then they can start sacrifices again. And that, again, is a big piece. That needs to be there. That almost needs to be there, ready to go when Gog and Magog happens, for these prophecies to really start cascading and for the dominoes to start, falling like that. And I think that's very possible. We are there. All the events are converging. They're coming together. And you need to be right with Jesus Christ. I hope you know Jesus. He died about 2,000 years ago for my sin and your sin. He's coming back. He's coming back in the next couple of years. I believe, based on the study, based on the news, based on the state that the world is in, that I see. I'm going to end it there, guys. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe, and feel free to support the channel as well. And let me know. Give me the like and comment on the video, and that helps me out. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you guys in the next video.